Welcome back to Kodsnack. Before we begin, just a quick but huge thank you to everyone who supports us through coffee. You too can become one of the select few, one of the self-selecting few, by going to ko-fi.com/kodsnack, KODSNACK, and picking a membership level or a one-time donation. But if you do pick a membership level for €5 per month, get a bunch of nice stickers sent to you. And if you go for the €10 per month barista level, you get stickers sent to you, and you also get a shout out in the episode right here. 1,000 thanks to brother Ingo and Tobbe Lundberg for your fantastic support. It really warms our hearts and helps us pay the costs and encourages us to make an even better podcast, plus create more cool stickers. And you too can become like brother Ingo and Tobbe by going to ko-fi.com/KODSNACK. But remember, you are fantastic just the way you are, whether you support us monetarily or not. Now, on with the episode.
I was very surprised when I heard that sign language is different in different languages.
Yeah.
What a missed opportunity.
That's what I feel as well. There's got to be a historic reason behind this.
Yeah, two of them.
Yeah.
But is it, and it's different, a bit different for each language or something like that? Right?
Yeah, so English Sign Language is different from Swedish Sign Language. Which, would have been, I don't know, it felt like if that could have been like a universal language, that would have been super cool.
Yeah, should have been.
Yeah.
But, most languages have like specific, a broader vocabulary in certain languages for certain terminology. So maybe in Sweden you want to have a bit more breath when you talk about, I don't know, IKEA furniture.
That is what our language is optimized for.
We have signs for 16 different sizes of screws.
Yeah, every screw needs its own, that makes sense.
Like the Billy bookshelf is the quickest sign to make because you use it all the time. Right?
That is so IKEA's prevalence across the world makes moving internationally so much easier. I'm a big fan. It's like we know which shelf we like, so we can, every country we live in, we can get the same shelf.
Yeah, and it's called the same thing as well.
Yeah.
But I struggle going to IKEA in other countries. They never understand me, although I pronounce everything perfectly fine.
Mine's like, where's the uplever? And they're like, you mean the, how do they pronounce it? Uplever.
Yeah. They're like making it English, and I'm like, no, I said it right.
Yeah.
And you always look at Malin like Malin is the crazy person.
Yeah.
Why don't you know how to pronounce those words?
Yeah, not a single one of them. It's embarrassing. I wonder if they get like instructions. If there are official IKEA instructions for you should try to pronounce this like this, or you should localize it or something.
Yeah, well, because I would think some things are just way too hard for them to say, like letters that don't exist in other alphabets. So it makes sense.
Exactly.
No, that ones you can at least try.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. Feels like summer is coming up.
Yeah.
So I mean, one more week to go before a few weeks of holidays. So that's nice. And it's starting to get colder and rainier. So that's
really?
the pattern as well.
Oh, no.
That's how you know the summer is near.
Oh, yes.
Is the summer usually okay in your, like where you are?
Yeah, usually. But there's this Swedish amnesia thing where statistically, if you look at weather, you know that July is a pretty rainy and cool month compared to the other summer months.
Okay.
But nobody wants to remember that ever, especially not in July. It's like, this is the worst ever. This is a horrible summer.
It does sound, that does check out. July is usually, like August is way better.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a warm June, you'll also be pleasantly surprised because it's only June, right?
Yeah, exactly. So and it's, sometimes late May is really great as well. Yeah. So I mean, I'm not a fan of the super hot days. So for me, it's kind of nice that July is usually a little bit cooler as well. But I think last year was unusually bad, both July and August. So it might actually be a bit better this year.
That's definitely a good feature of Vancouver. The summers are... I don't think we've had a bad summer since we moved here.
Oh.
No. I said it in like April, and then we had like a really relatively cold June, and I felt like I might have jinxed it.
Oh, no.
But it's getting better. We're going to have like 32 degrees this weekend. So.
32?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a bit much for me, but we don't have air conditioning in the bedroom, so...
Yeah. After our 5 years in Australia, everything under 40 is fine.
Yeah. Oh, 40. I'm not sure we've even been close. I'm pretty sure I've been a few degrees above 30, but never close to 40 as far as I feel like I should remember that.
Yeah, the hottest I think we've had in Perth was mid-40s.
Yeah.
45 or something.
44, 45,
yeah. That was pretty warm. You go out and it feels like you walk into a hair blower.
Yeah.
In shopping malls, I think... I don't think they have it in Australia, but in Sweden, if you go into shopping malls, like there's like this in-between part where you have like double doors. And when you go in there, it gets this like, they're like blowing hot air.
Yeah.
That's how it feels when you go outside. And then it just never stops.
It never stops.
This is wrong.
Yeah. It's so hot at that temperatures that if you walk over, they're like, how asphalt has like the lighter one and the darker one. The darker ones you cannot stand on too long because your shoes start to melt into it. So it's like if you stand there for like 30 seconds, you want to get off, you hear like the shoe getting stuck to asphalt. So that might be a little bit too warm.
A little bit. Yeah.
32 is fine.
Yeah, you can be outside and enjoying it, not regretting it. It's better.
I know we already started recording, but there was a setting when I joined asking if I wanted echo cancellation. Do you want me to turn it on?
No, you're using headphones. You shouldn't need it.
Okay.
Yeah. I like it turned off as well.
You like the echo? Cool.
No, I don't hear an echo.
Cool. No, then I should be.
And if you happen to create an echo, I get a reason to use isotope to filter it out, so that's cool as well.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, there's so much technology that has helped us edit podcasts. Like not edit podcasts, but fix audio lately. Because we've done so many different guest recordings for the Deep Dish Swift conference.
Of course.
There's everyone just has very different setups. So we just had to like sometimes amplify their voices or try to get things like in the background out, and sometimes there might be some humming that's not like we don't notice during the recording, so we have to get that out. And we have been able to use so much good like AI software now that can just like remove that.
Yeah, it's really good even at like not like humming is usually pretty easy even with older tools, right? But like having like construction noise in the background and it turns on and off, and then people shouting and all of that, it's just no problem anymore. It's pretty good.
It's incredible when you get it. So what software have you been using?
We used both Auphonic for some stuff when the audio was better overall, but we want to clean up. Auphonic is really, really good at that. And then the other one for people that had really bad audio setups, we used Adobe's Podcast Enhance, I think it's called.
Cool.
That one is almost too good sometimes.
Sometimes it sort of hallucinates.
Yeah, it has the same problems that all other AI tools kind of have, where it can hallucinate. So some noises, it might not interpret as a noise and then tries to make it a voice, but it uses the voice track of the person to mimic their voice. So then there's like, there's a book tipping over and kind of like flopping on the table and makes it sound like... It's like, what was that?
so weird. So it's like, here's a recording inspired what we actually heard.
Yeah. So that
if Malin would sound like a book, this is what that would be like.
It's a creative challenge, but it is for parts where it's like audio was just dropping out. It even fills in the gaps. It's kind of scary and weird, but it works really, really well for, I'd say, 85% of the cases, but then the 15% of it is, you have to edit around those and use the original.
You definitely want to listen to it after running it through.
Yeah. But I guess, I mean, it must be fantastic for that stuff that we wouldn't be able to get to sound decent otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely had 2 recordings that we thought, when we listened to it, we thought we couldn't release those episodes.
Oh.
And then running it through there was like, all right, now this person. It's also weird because during the good sections of the tool, it sounds like they had a studio microphone and it's like perfect audio. But then when the audio was so bad that it had to hallucinate and just made up random words, that's, then you have to switch to the original audio, which sounds like even worse in comparison. Yes. So that's a bit tricky, but overall, very impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Cool stuff. I have a tab open. Do you need an Adobe subscription to try it?
I think the podcast stuff is actually free, if I remember correctly. You get bigger limits and more settings if you pay for any of their subscription services. It's included in most of their creative packages. But I think you can use it for 2 hours of audio a day for free or something like that. It's pretty generous of a
that's
limit.
good.
Speaking of AI tools, it was WWDC recently, and we got Apple Intelligence.
Oh, yes.
Should we talk about WWDC?
Yeah. Yeah, what was it like? Was it good being there?
Yes.
Why the hesitation?
No, I don't want to make, I struggle because I'm always so excited about it. And I almost feel bad for saying it was amazing. You should all have been there. No. It's like, but it happened already. And, but honestly, I think it's my favorite part of the year.
Yeah.
I've been quite a few times now, and I never stop being excited about it. I'm always I don't know. I feel like I'm bouncing off the walls. I'm like a kid on Christmas. It's awesome.
Yeah,
but it's even better because it's Christmas and the weather is nice.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's disappointed if it doesn't snow and stuff like that. Yeah, but I mean, I have kind of the same feeling as well. I've been once in 2011. And that's feeling, it's still there in the background. It's like, yes, it's WWDC time.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah. You just remember hanging out with people and.
Yeah. And it's also, there are, I think the announcements are sometimes better and sometimes less exciting. But the conference itself, I really like the setup that Apple landed on now. Because if you don't go in person, I think you get most of the value out of it, right? The sessions are amazing now when they're pre-recorded and they have the length that they should be rather than having to be padded.
Yeah.
And you have the labs as
having
well.
Online labs, so you can actually sign up for that if you have questions. I think it's, and obviously the keynote is recorded anyway, so everyone watches the same thing, same for State of the Union. So I think if you're not going, you're missing out less on the core conference, announcements and content. But if you get to go, I think that format is now also really, really optimized for everything being pre-recorded. So you have essentially the biggest watch party in the world, right? Yeah. You're just, you see a lot of people that you might know from all over the world. You're having really tasty breakfast at Apple's campus. You can
and I think that is
last-minute predictions of what do you think will happen, and then you find your seats and you're just hanging out with friends watching the presentations.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was really I really enjoyed it being a full wake conference and it being more like a conference center, more like a traditional conference essentially. But I always felt like I made I had to make a deliberate trade-off when being there, because when I knew that it was a conference and I had paid a lot of money to be there for the ticket, I think it was close to $2,000. Yeah. I felt like I needed to go to every single session and I needed to go to every lab, and especially once they started to record things and I could watch it afterwards, I was like, okay, I really gotta have all those questions prepared because I pay a lot to be here and I should really make sure I get all the value out of it. Was essentially I think I still would get value out of hanging out with people, chatting to people in the hallway.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like this mental calculation that you're like, I can hang out with these people another time. I should really go in and ask my questions. And I don't feel that stress now at all. I can just
great.
it's just about the sort of social event. Even when you're lucky to get a ticket, when you're there at Apple Park, it is about socializing. All the things are surrounding watching those videos are about like meeting the team, catching up with people who you haven't seen in a while, asking, like going up to engineers whose frameworks you've been using for years and just chatting with them, tell them that you love what they're building. And it just feels a lot more like a focus on that. And I realistically feel like talking to people is when we get the most value. We can sit afterwards and read up on documentation and learn all those things, but that in-person communication and just like hearing what other people are doing, it just sparks so much enthusiasm. So
and also I think
that.
Apple with this format leaves enough space for community events, right? Before, like in the olden days, there were alternative conferences, but it was a very clear divide between the people that had a ticket and they would spend most of their time within Apple's conference center, and the people that had either an alternative conference ticket or no ticket at all, and they would not be allowed in that venue, right? It's very different. Well, now, I mean, Apple does have the event on like Sunday, like the registration where you go to Infinite Loop and you're hanging out there, and on Monday, obviously, the keynote day. But then the rest of the week is essentially run by the community, which is super fun. So from Tuesday onwards, everyone that's there is kind of in the same situation. Everyone's just hanging out, talking about the new things, going to coffee shops, going to evening events and those kind of things. So it doesn't feel like there's this kind of divide between people with a ticket and without a ticket from Tuesday onwards, which I think actually makes it feel nicer, because you don't really, you don't have to plan for, can I meet, my friends, or do they... which of my friends had a ticket and I can meet on that side of the fence, and which friends did not get a ticket and I have to go to the other side of the fence. Yeah,
exactly. And so schedule a time between everything else.
So I think that actually makes it feel more of a community week than the old format.
Yeah. And I mean, I saw a few photos from your morning meetups as well.
Yeah,
that looked like the community.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, that was super fun. I'm happy that we got to go this year. Last year, our flight was canceled, so we actually missed our kickoff meetup.
Yep.
So we texted a friend. It's like, hey, we had like 150 people RSVP to a meetup. Would you mind organizing it, because our flight is canceled?
And by the way, it's in 2 hours.
Yeah,
pressure.
Yeah.
So this year we actually flew in a day early just to make sure we're actually at our meetup.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably a little bit of an over-adjustment. Like, how likely is it that the same flight is cancelled? But at the same time,
be surprised.
It's a good excuse to come in early and meet with more friends.
Yeah.
I do think that was nice. I think going there a day early was making this entire thing a lot less stressful.
Yeah, I think there's never a trip where you like regret having some more margin to relax.
Yeah. So yeah, that was super fun that we put together our coffee shop meetups, and I think it was about almost 200 people at the first one.
Yeah.
And what I thought it was really like, it's cool that a lot of people showed up, but I think the thing that I loved was to just see it sort of organically, like people figured everything out. Like, we are not having like a formal structure of the meetup. It's just for people to have like a place to meet and chat. And I didn't see people standing on their own. It felt like everyone sort of invited each other and like tried to form groups and chat with each other.
We do try when we see someone by themselves. We usually try to, like, even with the meetups that we're organizing here, if someone seems to be shy, we're trying to walk up to them and kind of get them into a chat. But I feel like this time it was, I think it's probably self-selecting as well for people that want to socialize. You know, it's probably easier than if it would be a completely random selection. People that deliberately want to go to meetup probably want to talk about nerdy computer topics anyways.
Yeah. But what I really loved that I heard later in the week was that there were some people who had been to the first meetup And then they kept on hanging out throughout the whole week. Like they had never met before. They met at that meetup and they just had a lot of things in common, and they were just like becoming friends over the week. And
they actually
apparently they were planning like what they're going to do next year and planning to rent Airbnb together. And it's this like group of people that never met each other. It's great.
That's like the ideal conference thing to happen.
Yeah.
Like you bump into someone at random and then you become friends and you hang out all week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
No, it's so yeah, I love that part. I love the community aspect.
Yeah.
And it is going back to like the format. It is very cool to, if you do happen to have a ticket, to actually see like Apple's campus, which we haven't been allowed to in the past. Especially like the opening, the sort of welcome reception for you to get your badge is now at Infinite Loop, which feels almost like a historical building at this point. Like, you can go in and you can really like see basically like where they used to have all of their event. They used to have a lot of like internal conferences, and people were never really allowed to like the inside of Infinite Loop, where they have like a big park and a big garden and
you mean Apple
Cafe
Park?
Max. No, in Infinite Loop, it's also has like an inner section. And that's sort of something that I had seen being like used for Apple's events when they had like internal concerts and those type of things. And I've seen streams of it and like recorded videos, but like you were not usually allowed to go in. Kai and I took a trip in 2010, I think, to Cupertino, and we took a picture outside of the building. So like now being allowed to go into like their old office space or office building is very cool.
And also last year when we got to go, we were, because of our flight being canceled, we were in a mad rush to make it to check-in. So we only had like an hour at most at Infinite Loop. So it was also fun this year to actually not having to rush and be like, I hope we make it before they cut us off.
This is what it looks like when you can't stand still for a while.
Yeah. But I'm a big fan of Infinite Loop. I think that's a super fun campus. And it's also always fun when it's, because their kind of entrance section, they have like all the awards that Apple won. So they have like their Emmys and those kind of things. And then they have the awards that they give out, like the Apple Design Award. They have an App of the Year Award, the blue kind of block of metal that they're giving people that win the App of the Year. So all of those are kind of... in like a glass viewing area. That was fun to see too.
So did many people stay for a whole week, or were most people there for like the first 2 days?
I would say a lot of people stayed till Thursday and Friday. Sort of. Then
I was surprised this year. This year people stayed a lot longer than last year. Seems like Thursday is probably when you felt for the first time, it's like, all right, it's actually coming down.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, I would say so too.
I think last year a lot of people flew out on Tuesday morning already.
But again, everyone likes to take it a bit easier if you can, I guess. And there were some other like conference events being arranged as well, right?
Yes. So there was... There were both meetups. There was the iOS Dev Happy Hour, who have been doing a lot of online meetups throughout the year. They had a watch party for the keynote, and then they also had an event one of the nights. And then there was also a new conference called One More Thing, which was sort of meant to. It felt similar. I think the idea was to be similar to what Outconf was in the past, where you could have like an alternative conference, an alternative venue where you could go, and there were sessions and places to just like hang out and chat with people. We unfortunately did not have as much time as we anticipated to go there. We had a ticket, but we didn't really spend as much time as we were.
We only managed to swing by the last day, and it wasn't even for a session or a talk. We just kind of want to say hello, see the venue, and it was. We did not expect the week to be as busy as it ended up being.
No.
Because we did end up having a few different meetings popping up, and different people who we hadn't seen in a while that we wanted to catch up with. So we had coffee meetups as well, or coffee meetings. So it became a pretty busy week. But yes, in theory, there's a lot of other things going on during the week as well. And then there's also the talk show live by John Gruber, and then Jim Stemsley and the Breakpoints, which is a conference where all the tickets goes to. Sorry,
concert.
You said conference. I say conference. I honestly really struggle say the word concert. I go to more conferences than concerts.
Who doesn't?
It's like autocorrect that can't do it.
Yeah, the snap to grid problem.
So that was a concert on one of the evenings by James Dempsey, who used to. I don't know if you know the history of James Dempsey.
I mean, I heard the episode with him, and
you're right.
I think I've dug up some old dub recordings of his session where so I saw him sing a song about model view controller.
A
long time ago.
So it's so cool how it just started out with being like a funny thing where he performed at the end of his WWDC talk, and then now it's like a whole concert, and he has like other people playing with him on stage, and they're collecting money that they are donating to charity. It's very cool.
Yeah,
great guy.
Yeah, definitely. He seems really, really nice as well.
Yeah, and he has so many fun stories.
I bet.
Yeah, I always like catching up with him and talking to him.
Yeah. He picked a good time to join Apple. I think that period has probably the best Apple stories.
When was it? It was right
just before Steve came back.
Right before Steve came back. Yeah.
Yeah, things were a bit looser around the edges.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the news from the conference then?
Oh yeah, they did those too.
Yeah, exactly. Have you had any time to think about them? I guess that's the first question. It feels like you almost had a busier week than you would have if you had just gone to sessions.
Yes. The week after the conference was we kept it open-ended on purpose. And I spent a lot of time just watching sessions once coming back from the conference. Overall, I think I really like. It feels like a bit like a snow leopard year. Like there's a lot of really nice improvements everywhere, and it's awesome. I don't need there to always. I love having some like flashy new features, but also having a year for things to just cement and come together and just feel like they're polishing things up. That feels great.
Also, just opening our apps on the betas and it just works. Was nice.
That's not every year.
Yeah, because some years you're like, oh no, you have, but then you also always have to play the gamble, right? Things are broken, and now you're in the situation, you had beta 1 or beta 2. Do you go through the effort of trying to find workarounds? Do you file it as feedback and figure out, all right, what's actually causing the problem? Or do you just step away for a couple of weeks and hope it will be fixed in a later build? Yeah. So you're always in this situation where you feel like it's a gamble, because if you don't find a workaround and you don't file it, it might never get fixed. And then you're kind of towards closer to September, you have in this mad scramble of figuring something out. Yeah. This year, ran it on the betas, everything worked. It's like, cool. Yeah. So we can be on our schedule, do whatever we decide to spend time on, rather than having to make it work.
It's really nice.
Yeah, and usually we will want to make it work because we are fortunate to have people. A lot of our users are very eager to adopt the new betas, so they tend to be on the beta on often day one.
We have more people on 18 than 16.
Yeah. So I'm quite happy that there weren't any breaking changes for that. So now we can sort of. It's always interesting. Like WWDC is where we set the schedule for the rest of our year, essentially. So we feel like now we can really focus on building. Like we don't have to worry about like fixing stuff temporarily for that period. We can just focus on what we want to build. But back to like it being a year where things are just sort of feeling more stable. I feel like that's also the case from like a framework perspective. I love that there's a lot of things from like Swiftui that I felt were missing before that are now just there and just feels a lot more complete. one thing that I kind of been wishing for years, and we've been telling people about it now. We're very excited about it. It's like in Swiftui or in an iOS app. If you build it in UIKit, by default, if you have a tab bar, by default, if you tap that tab, it would pop to the root view or go to the top. So if you're in a scroll view and that's like the top level view, it would scroll to the top of that view. If you're further into the view hierarchy and
like
you
in the
tap
navigation stack or...
Yeah. And you tap the tab bar item again, then it pops to the top view. So you sort of get back to the root view and to the like core view. Yeah. That was a default behavior that was there on UIKit. Yeah. And since Swiftui, it's sort of been slowly forgotten. Like I never forgotten about it. I always want to have it. So Kai and I have been adding a lot of sort of like very elaborate workaround to have this behavior. And it wasn't very straightforward to add it in Swiftui apps. And I was starting to feel like, oh no, if they don't add this soon, this will be like a forgotten behavior.
Yeah,
like
that's
people, it's been 5 years ago since Swiftui came out. There's a lot more Swiftui apps coming already. Out. Yeah. and then I was feeling like people in our community are actually starting to forget that this used to be a behavior. And I don't want that, because every time I try to do it and it doesn't work, it feels like my thumb is broken.
Yeah. Everything becomes more cumbersome.
Exactly. Yeah. And now it's there. It's back. It's there in Swiftui. So crisis averted.
Yeah, but it's so kind of scary as well when you're pretty sure nobody's ever going to say officially whether it's coming or not. Like, it could be any day now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm glad that there was people at Apple who also thought it was very important and ended up adding it.
Yeah, glad they kept the list so they didn't lose it.
Yeah, but it feels like a lot of those kind of things this year. A lot of just Swiftui performance improvement, a lot of like just things that we were hoping would come at some point, like Swift Charts. Swift Charts performance is so much better now. We had so many hacks, or should I call them hacks or clever solutions to performance issues? But mostly hacks to make our Swift Charts perform, especially on older devices. And now combining with the iOS 18 SDK and running iOS 18, it's just not a problem anymore. It's so much more efficient.
Performance gains like that's Mercury.
Yeah. Exactly. But it actually, we wanted since day one. You know how the Apple's weather app has essentially a page view controller where you can swipe between the different weather locations. We wanted to do that, but we couldn't because the performance was so bad when it would page the next location and it would try to render the chart. Even on at that point, I think it was iPhone 14 was the latest iPhone. It would freeze for like 700 milliseconds, which when you're scrolling just didn't feel good, right?
No,
because
it feels
was
horrible.
rendering that on the main thread and it just breaks and then snaps back to where your finger is. And that's now fixed. So we can actually do what we want to build for our version 1. We can now finally build in, I guess, be version 3.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many... It feels like there were quite a few like surprising issues like that with various Swiftui things.
Yeah,
like why this particular edge? and how much black magic did they have to do to fix it eventually?
Yeah. And it was always like I think there's a lot of things that used to be hard to build in UIKit that were way easier to build in Swiftui, but then some things that used to be like it's a little bit of work. They were like extremely difficult to get in Swiftui, especially when there was behavior that like there were some things in the framework where like you could get 90% there, but then those like final 10% you either had to do a workaround for or go back to UIKit. And if you're not familiar with Swiftui, you often don't know about those final 10% until you hit them. And then it's like, oh man, I should have done this differently. And I feel like there's a lot more things that we just get now, especially like improvement to the scroll view and the scroll view behavior and how we can like actually access that. It's I think there's so many like just framework things that are gonna just make things much easier for developers.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I'm super excited about, not as a developer, more as a user, live activities on the watch.
Hey.
Yes.
Yeah, that to me is one of the biggest announcements. I every time I feel like the watch was such a good platform for a live activity, right?
Yeah.
I know you order food and you want to just look at your watch and see when your food's coming. It's like, oh no, it doesn't support live activity, so you have to go to your phone, or you're flying somewhere and you have a live activity to see when boarding starts and those kind of things.
Yeah, exactly. The gate.
Yeah, because you would look at your watch to see what the time is as well.
Yeah,
exactly. It feels sensible to have that, right?
Yeah, so that's there now, and it seems like developers don't have to do anything. It just communicates with your phone and does it for you. Is really good. That means you're not relying on developers to build anything. It's just gonna work.
And so if you have a live activity on the phone, it will. Yeah. It's like widgets on the Mac from the phone, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they use the same technology to communicate.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff with widgets going across as well. Someone wasn't there. I think I heard someone talk about that, like adding widgets to control center, and that's the exact same thing as something somewhere else.
Yeah. I'm very much looking forward to that as well. Both from a user perspective, but also from a dev perspective. So we definitely want to add for Orbit for time tracking. We want to add a timer there so that you can just start and stop a timer directly in Control Center.
Of course.
So it becomes like a mini remote, like a shortcut. But right there, it's gonna be great.
But then also people can essentially build like a little bit of a quick start dashboard, right? Because you can have different buttons in your Control Center that would start timers for different things. So if you have different projects that you're working on, you can just have all four in a grid, and you just tap the one you want, and you don't have to open the app at all. So it's really quick to do. I think that's a fun thing. Also like that you can drag like all the widget resizing stuff. I think is really clever. Like even if you don't have a widget, right? If you download an app and it has a widget, but you don't know that it exists. If you push and hold tap and hold the app icon on your home screen, one of the options is to convert it into a widget in iOS 18.
So you can put it.
But it's not only like a quick menu change. You can actually start dragging it, right?
Yeah, that's for resizing if you want to resize it. But even if you don't have a widget, you can essentially turn an app icon into a widget. Which
okay, and then you can move it anywhere a widget can be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Yeah, and then you can, I think that's also really nice. You can change them between. So if the same widget has multiple sizes, you can start with like the small one, and then you can drag it out to be like a bigger one, and just do that all in line, rather than having to like remove it and go into your widget gallery, pick a new one, and then add that one.
Yeah, because you could do that on macOS since last year already. To just change them on the fly, but you couldn't on iOS.
Oh, I've never even tried it.
I never tried that either. I'm like, what?
It's a classic.
Yeah.
There's always too many things in front of my widgets.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, but if you control click any widget on your home screen, you should be able to just select the size, and it will just animate to a new size.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Okay, but it's not draggable.
No, not draggable. It's just in the context menu, you can select all the sizes that it has.
Yeah.
And then, but you don't have to remove it and re-add it.
Yeah, that's nice.
Cool.
The clock widget had some kind of performance issue when I brought it back to the larger size. Like rendering 4 clocks at once, but apparently a bit much work.
Yeah, really pushing the boundaries of the possibilities of computing.
Yeah, it's probably 1 performance core per clock there. I mean, it's real time as well, so you know.
But how about you, Frederick? How do you feel? Is there anything? What's your favorite feature that was announced?
I feel like what I'm most. I mean, I'm looking forward to like just using features, of course, and like having my phone on the Mac screen and stuff like that.
Is that going to be available for you?
Not that they say right now. Anyway, but when they're done pouting about it, I think.
Yes, sorry,
I think it will come eventually.
No, I was honestly curious because I know that the new feature in FaceTime to share your screen is not going to be available directly in your...
To remote control the screen.
To remote control the screen,
that one as well. Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because the main thing I want to use it for is tech support for my parents.
Yeah, of course, of course.
They are in Europe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Mac screen sharing is probably falling under the same thing.
I guess
Mac,
if
control.
Yeah.
If they think all the integration stuff is dangerous, then probably... They get there, but
it's I'm sure it will be eventually sorted out.
I mean, it feels like one of those things. If they wanted to solve it, they could.
Yeah. I mean, I see the argument. Like, if you're adding more, if you're branching out how the operating system has to work. And you have to sort of conform in different ways. It's going to take a longer time to add that, but it can also be it's still a big company. There's a lot of people who could be working on it, but I understand it. If it's like a new thing that comes up that Apple has to conform to, it's probably going to change their roadmap a bit. But I don't know. I'm curious to see. Like, I feel like there's just so many different debates with Apple and Europe that are going on at the same time. So I feel like it all sort of falls under this umbrella now, where it's like, we're just gonna figure things out.
I would also not be surprised if there's a part of Apple that does not mind that people might be annoyed about the EU. Right. It's kind of like I genuinely think there is a part of it. Of like, hey, we don't want to go through the extra effort of figuring out if this complies with the EU. Let's just postpone it. Yeah. But at the same time, if we get more people to be, voicing their disagreement with, the
but it feels like it does feel like that can backfire, though. I'm not sure if that's really. It feels like you're playing a dangerous game there because it can also be that everyone in Europe is irritated with Apple, which I have not seen. I feel like that hasn't really been a problem.
I've seen some of that. I think you can get all of those. Yeah.
You're definitely getting people to talk about it.
Yeah, that's for sure. People in my Mastodon flow are definitely more on the side annoyed at Apple. And I mean, a bunch of people feeling like, there's a lot of deliberate, bad faith misinterpretation of what the rules are actually saying. And I haven't read it all, so I don't know either way.
But I can see that, even just on a personal level, I could see why a company like Apple would be a little bit spiteful of having the EU tell them what to do, and they're like, well, then you're not getting any integration features for a while.
Yeah, exactly. No integrations for you. But it's fun. I wonder if Apple will manage to push the brakes in time, or if they will end up like Microsoft in the late 90s, getting antitrust trials and governments looking into breaking them up and stuff like that. I'm not sure if they can stop in time or not. But it's all up to them.
It doesn't immediately feel like they could. It feels like they're very much committed to the current direction.
But I mean, it really is a classic case of this is the stuff that brought us here, that made us successful. But it's not the same situation now, so you really shouldn't be maybe not fighting that particular battle right now.
It will be interesting. In the next few years of that, because we've recently seen an interview with the CTO of Meta, and he's, or not an interview, it was an AMA type thing, and he said that Europeans should expect from Meta features that Matter features that they might roll out in other parts of the world immediately might come a year or two later in Europe, and that's a thing people should just be expecting now, which I don't know if that's sustainable either.
No,
that doesn't feel like.
This was specifically when they were talking. It was a question coming up based on the Meta Ray-Ban glasses which do have an AI integration or a voice assistant integration. And that is something that just hasn't been rolling out in Europe. It has rolled out here. And that is just a feature that I feel like it's essential for the glasses to be like more than just a camera and a speaker.
They're not the same otherwise.
Yeah. But I do
smart
I do
glasses,
think
but without the smart. Exactly. It's like, great.
But I do think, I do feel like it is, how do I phrase it? I think 2 years is extreme, but I feel like, and if that is actually going to be the case with things related to AI and related to all the new sort of tech that we're starting to see roll out, I think that can be really damaging for like developers and people who work in Europe, because I think we already start to see some countries starting to like ban ChatGPT and like not allowing you to use certain things. Like I think there or like a lot of regulations around those things, and I think I totally understand that you should start thinking about how to integrate that in a healthy way. But I'm also like a blanket ban on certain things can also make it way harder for like that country to like continue like staying competitive with the country that it comes from. So
I mean, this is not a ban, right? Those are all just regulations that those companies have to follow. Yeah, and they're now, all annoyed about it. But realistically, all the companies we're talking about.
It's a harsh punishment for users in those countries, because I think you don't want to fall behind as a user either and not be able to use the features that can actually like really help you do your job. And
but at the same time, if you think now that whatever Meta's product all suck in Europe, then you just, it's not, you don't have to support the company that makes decision that you're not agreeing with.
I mean,
it could also spark competition, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my guess would be that unless the EU really does go in for being like punishing and mean and like pushing things to their toughest possible extent, if they don't do that, I feel like we'll end up in some kind of balance like GDPR or cookie consent dialogues and stuff. People figure out, they mean you do this in this standard way, and then it's okay. I wouldn't be surprised if it lands something like that, and then there's some kind of checkbox somewhere that everyone's annoyed about, and like, we have to do this.
Which we really don't want, because I feel like it defeats the cookie warnings. It feels like busy work at this point.
I just can't
for everyone
imagine
involved.
If those people would just sit down together and actually talk, because I don't think people actually, I think in spirit, probably everyone kind of aligns with the ideas anyways. I'm surprised that we're in this position right now where it seems like everything is moving very slowly between like big companies and the European Union. Because I don't think the European Union wants to ban tech companies.
No. Not interested.
I think everyone actually has. It just seems to be in some kind of weird where everything goes through lawyers and legal. I think if they would just grab a coffee together.
Exactly.
It seems like we could figure this out in like a week. It does not seem like it's a problem that's impossible to overcome.
No, exactly.
I think everyone's just a little bit more spiteful than necessary. That's at least how it feels. I feel like this does not, like all of those things that people keep talking about. It's like, no, I think this is, we've solved harder problems on this planet.
You made a headset. This has to be simpler than that.
I mean, So I don't know. Maybe they should embrace fika culture a little bit. And
it would solve so much. Meet at IKEA. It's like a neutral ground.
It's essentially an embassy, right? In IKEA in Washington is essentially the Swedish embassy. That's how that works.
It makes sense to me.
I mean, that's where Malin gets a new passport every year. So.
flat cardboard.
That would be
passport.
so much more convenient if they would issue passports. Malin always has to fly to the capital of the country we're in.
Yeah.
And we're always really far away from the capital. When we lived in Australia, we lived in Perth, and the capital is in Canberra, which is like a 6-hour flight.
Now because in many, it's interesting. I mean, in non-European countries, the capital is often not where people live.
That's true.
Yeah. So now we're in Vancouver, and the embassy is in Ottawa, which again is like a 5+ hour flight. So it's really awkward for Malin to get a new passport. So if they would just bring that to IKEA, every city has an IKEA. That would be so much easier.
Exactly. And they would be really efficient about it as well.
You just pick, you pick a passport off the shelf, and then you do self-checkout. That would be...
Yeah, you go to a showroom, just look what the number is on what shelf you have to go to.
Yeah, exactly. No, the real question is, what name will they give the passport?
I think that's a good system. Like Sweden, many Swedes are named based on the namesdays. Maybe we can follow the namesday system or something for the shelving as well.
And it would be nice. You pick up your passport and you're like, oh, I like those plants, and you grab those too.
Yeah.
And then you come out, you spend $3,000 on sponges and plants.
But therefore the meatballs are really cheap.
Yeah. You can always afford to eat as well. That's great.
That brings a hot topic here. Fredrik, how do you feel about the meatballs at IKEA?
I feel like they were better before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like when people tell me that they have had meatballs at IKEA and think that like meatball for me is like this handmade thing that my grandma made, or like it's some love in it.
Yeah.
IKEA ones are like, it feels more like what you would get served at school lunches.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I feel like they used to be a bit like firmer. I feel like they're a bit spongier now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. They got super spongy.
Yeah. And I would like the sauce to be creamier as well, if I could choose.
Yeah.
I like this really thick cream sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Budgeting.
Yeah. No,
exactly.
But at the same time, it's kind of fun that you can send people anywhere in the world. You can send them and have a Swedish school lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
If they want a little bit of what it's like to go to school in Sweden, I think the IKEA food court is the closest you can get in most countries, probably.
It's not a bad approximation. Probably a little bit more nicely furnished, though.
Malin school was pretty nice. I mean, I only had yours as an experience. Yours were usually pretty nice. The food hall type of thing.
Yeah, it was fine. It was public, like it was usually quite. It was sort of, the school was at the same place as a hospital. So a lot of people who worked at the hospital also went to the school lunches because they could buy lunch very cheaply. So they probably had a nicer food court, partly because there were a lot of outsiders coming.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of variation between schools as well. How good the lunches are.
Yeah,
I've heard.
Yeah, yours. In Malin school, that was really, really good. I was surprised. Because in Germany, you don't get lunch at school. You either bring something yourself or you buy something, but there's no school lunch.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thought it was really fun in Sweden. You just get food.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's okay.
So how much have you looked into the various like facets of Apple Intelligence and what you can do in apps? It feels like the intent thing was spot on, wasn't it, Kai?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did talk about that. It's really hard to, honestly, a little bit hard to anticipate how much the intents will do at the moment, because it's quite limited in the different, so Apple has, and I forget the name of what they call it, but they have different sort of areas that intents can be related to.
Oh yeah,
so you have like mail and photos, for example.
Yeah.
Those are the first.
I think those
two.
are the two, right? Photos and mail.
Yeah, those are the first two. I don't know what it's called. Let's refer to it as
areas.
Those
are word for it.
Yeah. Those are the first two that are available, and then there's going to be more things opening up and coming in. But it's a little bit hard to grasp at the moment how much that's going to do for third-party apps. How do you feel, Kai?
Yeah, I think the good thing about the intent system, I think, is that if you support those, there is other value that people get from it, right? If people use shortcuts, now you have more shortcuts that you're exposing, I think, or more actions that you're exposing in your app. So I like that it's a thing where if you support it, you automatically get a whole bunch of new features, not just one. You don't have to do all this work just for Apple Intelligence. You actually, for your European users, they can also get value out of it. Yeah. Or for, also some of the stuff does not ship with iOS 18. I'm very unclear still on all the timelines.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of different laters mentioned, right?
Yeah, but the later
but also
was not as
different laters.
Yeah, it's like later this year, later in general, later within a year, which also is early next year. It's I feel like this time the timelines are very confusing to most people, where I feel like I don't know how much we can do, because realistically the ones that are shipping is photos and mail, and we're not we don't really have much to do with those.
No.
You and I? Yes. No.
Yeah,
not
like
directly.
our apps just don't do a lot of mail and photos. I feel like it's a very, very kind of narrow scope.
Yeah. What if you could email weather reports or something? Have they listed what the other intent topics or whatever to call them will be, or is that coming later as well?
No, there's a list, right? There
is a list. Yes.
It's just really hard to Google on the spot when you don't know what they're called. And
No, I'll find it and put it in show notes, because I've heard it as well, but I don't recall either. So
categories sounds good.
Category seems like a good word for this.
Yeah, would make sense. Category kit.
I also often find that if you try to find shortcut-related things, it's user guides rather than developer guides.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they should have a magic keyword for developer documentation and tutorials and stuff.
Yeah, I think Apple calls it domains.
That would make sense as well.
Yeah, so photos is one of the domains. So I honestly don't know if there's much... I've heard of some developers that just committed now already to go full in and make every single action in their app fully accessible through intents. I think we're gonna be a little bit of a wait and see, because I don't feel like Apple will just drop it without announcement. Right there, once more domains become available, they probably want to give developers a heads up.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna do the things that we want to expose. I think we're going to build the things that we would want to expose through shortcuts anyways now, and as we're adding features anyways, we're kind of not changing our behavior and kind of seeing how this is working out. And then once we get closer to them releasing the other intents that make sense for us, to build them then. But I don't think... I feel like sometimes there are APIs where you get a lot of benefit of holding off and waiting how things turn out. Yeah. And I think this might... It feels like something where it won't hurt to wait a little bit and see.
Yeah. It feels like you need to try a bunch of the stuff to see what you actually want to do. It's a hard to guess beforehand.
Yeah. I agree. It feels a bit like if you're adding analytics to an app, which we do not do to our personal apps, but if someone asks you to add analytics, and I think it's useful to know what we're trying to track. But sometimes I've seen some code bases where it's like, we don't know what we're going to track yet, so let's just add events for everything that is happening in the app and figure out what to use that for. And I don't really want to do that for intents where we just add anything possible. I want to have a direct use case that I see people using it for, and be more intentional about it. And I think we can do that through the shortcuts integration. So if we have something like Kai mentioned that is actually having a deliberate use case for the shortcut system, we will do those and then see what makes sense. Yeah,
because I also heard someone talking about getting the impression that they think you should add a shortcut for everything your app can do, every menu option basically. But that gives you a lot of very tiny Lego pieces to work with when you want to figure out how to use it. So
Yeah.
it doesn't feel obvious at all.
Yeah. It is nice to have instructions to the Lego set as well.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah.
24 pages.
Yeah, but I think in terms of other things that were announced, I like anything Apple Intelligence related. I just think as like from a user perspective, I'm very much looking forward to like having the direct integration for like text fields and those type of things. So if I'm writing an email and I can just change the wording, like get it to check my grammar, get it to check what I'm writing.
Oh yeah,
those are things that will also be there. And it's, in my understanding, it's going to be pretty much available in anywhere that you're writing text. You're going to be able to use this tool to rewrite something or get it to like write it longer, get it to do the grammar check, and that's super helpful for me because usually I do like a copy and paste it either in Grammarly or I paste it in like ChatGPT, and having that right there will be really cool, especially when it's on device and Apple actually is able to get more context around it.
Yeah,
it's gonna be really cool.
I mean, it really has the potential to be so much better and nicely integrated, but it's all down to how it actually works when you try it. But that isn't available in the betas yet, right?
No, later this year, I think.
Yeah, I mean that would I think that stuff should ship with iOS 18 and Sequoia in September.
Is that your opinion or is that what you think they said?
I believe that's what they said, but I would also be surprised if it's. That feels like such a core part of the new OS.
Yes.
If that would be delayed, that feels. But also at the same time, we can see how, how late everything seems to be coming together, considering that we don't really have anything in the current betas. Even in Xcode, in Xcode 16, the code completion stuff, the AI-powered code completion, we only have the code completion, but not the Swift Assist. So the one where you're actually writing, hey, I want, this type of file that does where you describe rather than it just auto-completing based on what you wrote. That's not in the betas either. So it seems like a lot of those things. I wonder if they don't have most of the, what are they calling it? Apple Private Cloud Compute? Something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if that's not set up yet. I wonder if that's like they have to architecture and now they're actually building a data center with that, because I think all of those they would probably have to scale them up if they would actually roll it out to the betas and to everyone, and also figure out what. I don't think they're very clear yet on what goes to the cloud and what doesn't. Yeah, like structurally, he talked about, hey, this is the phone will figure it out and then does it, but I don't know if they know what goes where yet.
No.
I wonder if that is deliberate security reason for not stating what goes where.
I think they. I honestly think they don't know yet, because it will be easy for you to find out once it runs on your device. You can just see what runs locally. But I wonder if the models that they're training at the moment are just not ready, because I assume the local model they will favor the local one whenever possible. But the on-device one has to decide what it thinks it's capable of and what it isn't. So I wonder if they're just not sure of the capabilities of the on-device model yet. Yeah,
that could be, of course. Yeah, I was just thinking that maybe part of the thing is that they don't release it because they don't want people like making decisions based on how it performs right now or something like that. That could be a bit of that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good point. Realistically, what do they have to gain from rolling it out right now? It's going to be worse now than it would be in 3 months. Right?
That's also true.
But that's the case with everything. Why would you have public betas then?
I know, but I think this is a big enough thing for them to be like Apple's AI, first step into AI. I think they're rather holding it longer if they think it gets significantly better over the next few months, rather than releasing it now and getting all the Verge articles of like, look at the stupid things Siri is saying. Look at how bad it is at generating this type of thing, right? There's not a lot for them to win from releasing it in a beta and getting people to talk about it because for developers it doesn't matter anyway, so why put it into a developer beta?
True. And I do agree. I think as soon as you're releasing, I mean, I don't have any personal experience releasing AI tools, but I think as soon as you you've seen this a lot with other companies rolling this out, that it's going to be so much scrutiny and so many people posting the worst.
What? I've never heard about people being...
People are cynical? What?
Yeah, I only see people like, yay, my computer can do a new thing. I've never seen anyone being...
Your filter bubble is really strong. Solid.
Yeah, but I think unfortunately, Siri has gotten this bad rep. I mean,
yeah.
Why is that unfortunate?
It's unfortunate because I think Siri came from such a. It was really supposed to be this cool technology, this cool personal assistant that would continue improving, and it was supposed to be like. I don't think it was supposed to get like a negative rep, but now it's something that's sort of made fun of. And I think if you are taking the step to not just calling it an AI feature, but you deliberately say Apple Intelligence, you don't want that to become a laughingstock. You want it to be working really well and ideally better than any other competitor.
Yeah.
Because it's the Apple Intelligence. It's better than anyone else.
I don't think it will be better than that.
No, but if you're going with that name, I feel like you will want that performance. So I would not, if I were at Apple, I wouldn't want to roll that out. Well, I know it's not perfect.
It is definitely a bold name, right? You don't want Apple Intelligence to be the dumbest model you've ever seen. That's not
Or make worse mistakes.
Yeah. But also realistically, if I would be in an Apple situation, is there any pressure to release it before the first, at the earliest, the first public beta? I don't think so. You know, what do developers need it for right now? Not a lot. You know, they're not, I don't think they have any concerns about the ecosystem of third-party developers not being ready for iOS 18 updates because they still ship the old Siri in the betas, right? That's not really.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, have they done any demos where you hear the new Siri speak?
Oh, good question. Do we hear
Because as I recall, there wasn't anything Siri voiced in the keynote.
I don't remember.
I mean, the parts I remember are like people asking questions and then the results being like demoed on screen and stuff like that.
Yeah. The new animation looks good though. I really
that looks
glowing,
really nice.
Glowing frame bezel thing. I think that looks really nice. That alone
really cool.
is already a huge upgrade. I wanna play with that.
Yeah. No, I think that looks incredible. It's like it has this really. It's playful, but also elegant at the same time.
Yeah.
I think Apple nailed that with the dynamic island as well. It has a very similar feel to it in animation. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same people building it.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know if the Xcode AI features come to Europe?
I don't remember. I don't remember hearing about it either, but I mean, most of the news I read are not like developer focused. Yeah. So haven't heard anyone dig into it.
What are you using like today in terms of like AI tooling? Have you used Copilot at all? Yeah,
I use Copilot a bit at work for JavaScript stuff mainly, or TypeScript stuff. I mean, it works decently. I think I'm annoyed at it pretty frequently, but I still think it helps me a little bit more than it frustrates me. Yeah. So it's sort of still on the right side, but I wouldn't miss it if it wasn't there either.
Oh, really?
Okay. Interesting.
Huh. Okay.
Because I use Copilot for, you write more JavaScript than I do. So whenever I write JavaScript, I'm very happy it's there because I keep forgetting like 90% of the things I need to do to make JavaScript work, and Copilot is forgetting maybe only 10% or 20%.
Yeah, but I mean, I think isn't that kind of the best use case, really? It's like, here's a language I don't work that frequently in. Then you can really get good use out of Copilot.
Yeah.
We also started using Claude, the new Claude, like Anthropic's new model, Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Is that what it's called? I think so. And that's really good for Swift code too. We sometimes give it like our entire file and just like, hey, can you check this for like obvious silly mistakes? And it's really good at finding like just essentially a copywriter, like an editor on code that you've already written. It's really good at like, hey, in this circumstance, it might actually, cause displaying something incorrectly, or if this array you're not correctly checking if before you're getting the average, if there are even any elements in the thing or something like that. Yeah. It's pretty good at pointing out those kind of things, or even refactoring things. You're right. Sometimes I write the most naive implementation of something, and then I tell it, hey, can you make this like less silly? Because I know what I want to convey, and it's easier for me to write the code. But I don't need to. I'm just not optimizing it and then telling it, hey, and now make this like actually nice and break it into functions and those kind of things. And it's really good at those kind of tasks as well when it has a core that works.
I should try doing that more often, actually, because there probably is a lot of stuff like that if I just get my mind into it.
Yeah.
It was fun. I'm not sure when it will be released, but I recorded an episode yesterday where I talked to an author who has done a iOS app called Bebop, which is for quickly taking notes. And he had a really Copilot based workflow. So so it's a Swift UI app, but he worked. I mean, we talked for an hour. I still wish I had dug into it even more how his workflow worked. But he basically had all the whole project open in both VS Code and Xcode, and then he like started everything with asking Copilot to do stuff for him, and then just used Xcode for building and running and working back and forth like that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and then when it got stuck or got stuff wrong, he started looking into it and like working that way. But like because he hadn't done any Swift or app development at all before, so he thought it was really useful at the start as well. Like, what's a decent basic architecture for this? Like, what patterns apply and things like that as well. And that's also stuff that I wouldn't think to try myself because I'm so ingrained in how I do stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to hear how other people work.
Yeah, I would say that we are at a point where we feel like we would be way less productive if we weren't using either ChatGPT or like any type of tooling. But and it's both for like helping us with the code aspect, but also for like all the other things that we just have to get done. I feel like we're at the point where Kai and I, we're like, it's the two of us and we're working on a lot of things at this point. And it's not just programming. It's also like app store copy or marketing copy or emails or like just all the things that go on around like building an app that are not programming. All those things are just so much faster and I would say more fun or less tedious at least while we're having these tools. So for us, I feel like we would be so much less efficient and also just grumpier because we'll be like, there were better ways of doing this and now we feel like we're just slower.
But it's also nice that you can outsource the things that you want to do the least, right? We're not always using AI just for what it is best at, but sometimes it's also just for the things that we don't want to do. Sometimes when there's a task and you don't want to do it and you spend half your day just finding excuses not to get started on it. And now my brain is a lot better at like, even if I know it's not going to nail it, but I just tell it to do it and then it writes code that doesn't work. But then it's there and now it is wrong. And then my brain is like, now I got to fix it.
Exactly. That's a whole different mindset.
Fixing code that doesn't work for some reason triggers like a different part from, the empty page and it's like the TA thing is a very different level of motivation than there is something and it's broken or it doesn't work right. And you're like, all right, now let me dig in. And it's somehow, it feels more fun or feels more almost more challenging because debugging code is often harder, right, than writing code. But for some reason, if it's a boring task, I prefer the slightly higher challenge because I don't have to do the boring part. I just jump to debugging directly. Those kind of things. For some reason, that works not for all tasks, but sometimes it's great. And otherwise, what are you going to do? Tell Malin to write the base implementation and let me debug it. That would be great.
Yeah, you're like, can you write this, but like miss like 10%?
Yeah.
Give me a challenge here.
Yeah, no, not all of it.
Yeah, I don't want it to compile like on first try.
Yeah, and I know like there's a lot of limitation, and it's definitely not perfect. I think there's so many things that can get better, but I feel like this has really sort of changed the way that we're able to like iterate on things, and the way that we're able to work on a lot of multiple areas of stuff at the same time. So I'm very excited about that. And I think like getting that directly into Xcode, getting it directly into the operating system with like writing tools and those things, it's going to be great. And I think I've spoken to a lot of people throughout the WWDC week who are in a similar situation to Kai and I. It's like either indie developers, or they are working on something on their own time that they want to be able to use tools for. And for them, they feel like they're going to be way more efficient this way. But I'm curious if you, Frederick, have heard from like a different perspective. How do you feel? Like, do you feel like those things are met with like positively, and people are excited about getting more AI tools like this?
Yeah, I feel like many people like you are like see a lot of great uses for text related tools, like you say, like grammar check this for me, or make it a bit more formal, or this is my second language, or stuff like that. Give me another pass on this, and then I guess most of the negative stuff I see is either from people who like, I care so much about my text, I still want to write it all myself. I mean, personality trait. Yeah. And then there's, of course, always a lot of negativity about like how the models are built and stuff like that, and what they're trained on. Feels like that's a really big area of negative feedback, I think. We're building these tools on top of everyone else's creations, and they're not getting any compensation for it, and then we're making money on it.
Yeah.
So that whole side, but I feel when it comes to code, it feels like it's sort of a mindset thing. Like, this is a tool, and some people really take to it. It really fits your way of thinking, and some other people feel like, there's another thing trying to help me with stuff. it just gets in. It disrupts my thought process or something like that. And I think I'm a little bit of both, depending on the mood of the day.
Yeah. I think that's healthy to have a bit of both. Like see the good parts, but also the parts where it's like a little bit more like clippy. It just bothers you. You don't want that.
But I would like to get into more of the thought process of seeing the opportunities.
Yeah,
because I think I have them still. Probably lots of them, but I'm not in the mindset of noticing. Oh, I could try throwing this to ChatGPT.
We're also like a small thing, but we now localize all of our release notes for all the languages that we support. Which it's not like changing everything, but it's a pretty nice thing. For the downside of that is we get way more support emails now in French and Chinese.
Because it's like, because once you translate your app, it's fair to assume that the people also speak the languages.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I didn't think of that up front, but it makes a lot of sense if the contact us button says that in a foreign language, and then we fill in the placeholder text in that language, because we're like, hey, we localize all the things. Obviously they then write their message in that language. Of course. It's not rocket science. We could have figured that out up front. But I was like, oh man.
Therefore, you can get help with translating it too. So you still,
I do answer now I do try to answer Chinese support messages in Chinese, and I hope it does all right.
It's hard to know though.
Do you usually also give them an English reply?
I have, in the beginning, I always did that. I essentially gave like if someone messages me in Chinese, I would first respond with the Chinese one, and then at the bottom, this was machine translated, here's my English one. I stopped doing that, and it seemed like people don't seem to get back to me and say that everything is not making any sense.
Just laughing at it.
Yeah. But it seems to be, I mean, I often, because like we speak like Swedish and German, it's often when we do things that we're like localizing for the app that we tweak things for them to tweak the prompts until it sounds good in Swedish and German, and we can verify that. And then we trust that it's doing a similarly quality job for the other languages. And especially interesting when the localization into the languages we speak is better than what we came up with.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it happens often. We got some feedback on the Swedish translations. We're asking if we could maybe get some help, like someone else to also have a look at it. I'm like, oh no. I should be able to speak this language, but it's honestly been really. I think the problem is just like when you wrote it in English, it's very hard to then just like translate it, but not do a direct replacement. Like you want to get the feel right in a language.
Yeah, speaking is a very different skill from translating.
Oh yes. Yeah, it's a whole different mindset.
Yeah. Because sometimes it's also, it's the entire structure needs to change if you're localizing something. But if you wrote it in English, your brain is kind of set in that order. So you kind of have to get out of it and think about it. What do I have and how would I translate it, but what would I write if I would write this in Swedish from scratch?
Yeah,
it's often
much
easier.
A simpler way. The straight translation doesn't have to be the most natural one.
Yeah. It's also like sometimes English is super casual, right? There's like just things that you would not feel out of place in English, and then if you would try to translate it to Swedish or German, you sound like a lunatic.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I wonder if localizations will become sort of a little bit more standardized if more people start using the same models to translate. Then maybe we'll get a kind of unification. Might actually become easier to understand interfaces instead of people making up their own terms.
Yeah, I definitely think it makes. I've seen a lot of independent developers localizing their apps as a result of this. I think that does, like, we have some friends that localize their apps as indies for a long time, but they have a budget. They essentially know how much they can localize every month because they pay like real money. Yeah. And now that allows like teams like that are smaller or they don't make any money yet or they're just launching their app to start off with localization. And then you never know, right? A friend of ours, his app became successful in China. And China was the market that allowed him to become a full-time indie. But he didn't plan for, most people when they release it, they think of the country they're in.
Yeah, of course.
And maybe the US as the market or something. But for him, it was China that was kind of the breakthrough. And those kind of opportunities just, I think, are more available to indies now because, it's so little overhead to localize.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely makes a difference lowering the what do you say? The barrier to entry there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, and it doesn't have to be perfect to be useful either.
Yeah. And people do tell you if you get it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Once it's the same thing, right? With my blank slate or get AI to write the first. Once people are like, especially French people, I found are very, very, very blunt about if you're like making any mistakes. We localized the app, and then we actually got a French friend of ours to proofread, but we missed one part of the app that we didn't localize. And the day after we shipped the localization, we got a 1-star rating on the App Store. It's like, of course, fully in French. They tried to localize the app. Can't wait for the app to be fully localized to French. It's like, really? We just missed one part. That's so hard. Yeah.
But also the fact that they were excited about it, but still give us 1 star.
Yeah.
It's no winning.
It's a very happy 1 star.
Yeah.
I would have taken 3 or 4, but
yeah.
We did fix it. And it's still 1-star rating.
Yeah, it's not like it's going to go back and update it.
Yeah. But yeah, I do agree. I think having it for localization and like it's been super helpful. And then have someone to proofread it afterwards has been helpful. We did have some interesting translation in Chinese. We got the translation done for widgets, like the word widget, which was in our upsell screen. And it was translated to, you can add small things to your home screen. Which sounds cute, but it sounds like a weird selling feature. Like it was in our upsell screen. So that's luckily our friend picked up on that. So
yeah. Yeah, translation. I mean, you never get them right when you do it completely manually either.
Yeah, especially with like Apple terminology. There is someone created a website where they index all of Apple's built-in apps and their localization. So you can put in like the word, I don't know, settings, and then it shows what Apple called settings in the music app or whatever in all the languages. Because Apple has like published some localizations, but they've not updated since I think iOS 14 or 15.
Oh, of course.
So this person essentially scrapes all the strings in the system apps and then exposes them on a website, which is really, really cool because a lot of Apple terminology is not a word-by-word translation of it, right? If you're like widgets. I don't know what widgets are called in all the languages. Or even for like payment terms and restore purchase and those kind of things that are just English or German or Swedish like phrases, but then maybe in French it's not actually called restore purchase but restore history or something like that.
Yeah. And like Apple features can have very different names as well.
Yeah, and sometimes they're also not getting localized, right? Some Apple features, they're just the same in Swedish than.
Or it's different in different languages. I think in German, you often don't translate a lot of like tech-related things. Isn't things like a computer you don't translate, right?
Yeah, or like widget. In German is widget, I believe. I hope you don't have German listeners to tell me off. I could tell you anything, and you would just have to believe me.
Yeah, I mean widget isn't translated in Swedish either, so.
Oh. Yes. Yeah.
But center stage is blickfång for some reason in Swedish.
Really?
Yeah, this is weird. Why did they do this? This makes so much harder.
I don't really see the connection at all, which is unusual.
Anything else that you're particularly interested in from like this year's announcements?
I mean, it's going to be fun to play with the handwriting features again on the iPad, of course.
How is your handwriting?
It's you can tell that my father is a doctor.
No!
But his handwriting is like mine, but like half size, so I'm a little bit easier to read.
I did not realize that was genetic.
No. I just have my suspicions. I think that kind of stuff is always fun to play with. I'm not sure I'll actually end up using it.
Did you update to any betas yet?
No, I haven't. I mean, the first thing I really wanted was the iPhone integration. And of course, I'm not getting that anyway. And
what would you use that for?
I mean, in general, I like to put my phone away a bit. And I've also realized that I kind of like having it on my desk when I work in, what is it called, nightstand mode? So just showing a widget or a clock or something, I think that's kind of nice. But I do want to check stuff on the phone as well. So I have a little stand that I put it in. It sits really nicely, same height as the screen and everything. But then when I want to do something, it's like, I got to twist it to vertical and maybe get it loose to touch and stuff like this. So I would like it for that.
I think similar vein, like continuity camera, if you actually would want to use your phone as a webcam.
Yeah, I want to do that. I haven't found a good clamp or something for it.
No, I think Kai was also on the lookout for that for a while, but then he ended up...
I tried to 3D printed some options.
Yeah.
It was fine. It's just kind of awkward. What I really want is the studio display camera to be better. That would be that would solve a lot of my problems.
Yeah, but I kind of miss also from when I had that little Logitech cam balanced on top of the screen that I could actually move it much easier.
Yeah.
So now I can't easily angle my webcam to show when the dog comes in and stuff like that. So the continuity camera would be nice to use a bit more.
When are you usually installing the betas?
It's varied a lot. Some years I've installed them almost immediately and usually regretted it a little bit later. But I feel like it's easy to resist now that quite a few of the features I want to try are like integrations between devices, because I'm not going to upgrade my iPhone very early.
No.
I need my bank ID and Swift and stuff like Swish, stuff like that.
Just don't log into anything till September.
No, exactly.
Are they blocked, or are you just worried that they wouldn't work?
I mean, some years it's taken a while before they started working.
Okay.
I mean, I think on average they've usually been fine, but there is the odd year where someone installs it early and it's like, oh, I can't get packages in the mail anymore.
I broke Bank ID once when I think they deliberately blocked it that year, where Bank ID just showed, hey, you're not running a supported OS version or something. I was like,
kind of a sensible thing to do in a way.
Yeah. But it's also Bank ID is so crucial in Sweden. I was like, oh no, I essentially cannot do anything now until that works.
I can't live for a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I think I will upgrade pretty soon.
I think I'll upgrade next week.
Yeah, we're actually going through our Canadian citizenship application at the moment. So we're gonna have our citizenship test maybe tomorrow, as early as tomorrow.
Exciting.
And that happens. It's an online test, and you use like your webcam and your browser to do it. So I do not want to run a beta Safari and a beta OS while doing that, because I don't. If your webcam would for some reason flake out during the test, it invalidates the test.
Yeah.
So I don't want to pass the test and then it's like, oh, your camera didn't work, too bad.
Yeah. No, but so after that they're going in.
Yeah. After that we don't need those old OSs.
Yeah, we need dumb stability. And then you start looking at how to update the apps and stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, most of our stuff, as I said, runs already. I really want to build the swiping between locations in Mercury.
Oh, yeah.
That's a thing I just wanted to have.
But there's still some new features as well. I think we do want to add control center integration. We obviously want to support all the app, add our own app icons now when you can change the colors of the app icon based on dark mode and those things. We want to do that.
Yeah.
And then
especially
we do
dark mode.
play.
I think the tinted ones, I'm not a big fan of. I don't know, maybe people will like it, but
I'm not a big fan either, but people will be able to use it. Like, you can't turn it off. So I think we want to give them the best,
exactly.
Like one that we think looks reasonable tinted. Yeah. But I think we're gonna the dark ones. I think the dark ones are actually really nice.
Yeah, I like what I've seen of those as well.
I think it will be.
Yes, you can tweak them to be even better.
Yeah.
I kind of regret how many custom app icons we added to the app now, because now we have to come up with dark versions for all of those. I wonder if
some of them we already made like a dark version of, so they are like dark by design.
Yeah.
So we gotta figure that one out.
Yeah. Is there a way to tell Apple to don't change this icon in dark mode?
No.
I mean, yeah, if you're just not having one, it will just stay where it is.
So if you have an icon that's pretty dark already, will iOS not try to change it when you switch to dark mode?
Yeah. The dark mode is not automatically happening. That's an image asset. So if you're not giving it one, then it will just stay where it is.
Oh, yeah,
Only
so it's just
tinting
a tinting. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. So I could imagine it for some of the dark, like that we might even have the same dark mode one for multiple of the ones, because we have essentially for some of our app icons, we we already have, because a lot of our app icons are inspired by weather conditions, and some of those weather conditions is rain at night. So it's already like a dark option. So for those, we might not change anything at all. And then we maybe have one that is more inspired by what our app looks like during the day and during the night. So it would have like the kind of bright sunny during the day, and then maybe like a night purple. And then maybe just share that icon across some of the ones where we don't have, ideas of how to make them dark mode, so that it just becomes like a darker version. But it's the same for maybe 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah. Have the sun turn into the moon when you go to the dark mode.
Yeah, we were thinking about that. I don't know if we want to have too big of a change either, because I don't know if everyone will, like, less technical people, once they update, and I don't know if it defaults to that, and then they don't find your app anymore.
No, that's not good. That's a good point. It should read the same.
Yeah. So I think we're trying. Maybe we have one that like deliberately is like a dynamic. That people can. Only people that change deliberately to that one will see it, and then we maybe in our picker we show it as a split one where you can see the light and the dark one, so you know nice. what you expect. But I think for the other ones we want to maintain the visual appear, like the constellation, just change the colors.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And then otherwise there's some new watcher stuff that we want to add. Like you can actually integrate with the tapping gesture now. Like add a primary action for that. So if someone puts their fingers together, we want to do that. And then there is interactive widgets on the watch now. So we want to do that. So you can maybe like either switch between hourly and daily, like forecast, if you want to see that, or if you want to change between like seeing trip forecast and not seeing trip forecast, those type of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, it's more like nice improvements. We can actually build the features that we've been wanting to build for a while now, like the page view, like more performant charts and those type of things. Yeah. I'm very excited.
Yeah,
charts doesn't sound super exciting, but it's exciting for us.
We're also building a new app. And we were worried that we won't have much time this summer, potentially, depending on how many things we have to do. Yeah. Now I feel like we're probably going to be able to release that around September as well.
That's really cool. Was it the one you talked about last time?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, we know. Yeah. I already use it every day now.
That's good.
I only spend... I think this was probably the fastest I've ever gotten a proof of concept working in my career. I think I spent like a day, and it's already I can already use it for my day-to-day task and like planning and those kind of things.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the prettiest app, but it's super fast, which is something I wanted to do. So it's like a Kanban board type thing. Yeah. And I built like all the keyboard shortcuts, so you can like hit Command N to create a new task and start typing directly, and then you can use Command left, right, and up, down to move them between different columns and up and down, and all of those kind of things you can just do really quickly with a keyboard. So I just switch over and then use keyboard, and then I can switch back to what I'm working on.
Oh, that's really nice.
That was kind of fun to get a proof of concept working so quickly.
Yeah. What end did you start? Do you start like from UI or from model or somewhere in between?
For this started, we're using Firestore as a backend because we wanted live syncing. So I set up the UI first and then kind of built the models to fit what I had in mind, and that worked really because it's like you don't need database schemas with Firestore. It's all like document based, so it was really, really quick to build it that way, where it's like, all right, forgot to have a title, and then you just add a title and you keep going. That's nice. It was really good for that. Yes, cool. I hope we get to ship this maybe around September at least.
Yeah, no, I think we should. I think we talked about that last time. We got the free deadline, so exactly. We should use it.
See if there's any new features that are natural to integrate.
Yeah, but it's also this one. It's going to be interesting. We don't really know again if iOS and macOS will be released like last year was a week between them, because for this we feel like it needs to come out on both platforms. So we would probably hold it for whenever. I assume iOS comes before macOS, like based on
but who knows?
17 years of history now. But I think we would hold it for macOS, and it's also probably better because I think around the macOS launch there's probably less. A lot of people will have their iOS apps ready for day one, so I think there's also less competition for like App Store new apps they like kind of thing on a macOS launch than on iOS. So maybe that suits pretty well anyways.
And it really feels natural to have it available on both screen sizes, so to speak, as well. And realistically for us, the iOS app is more for like on the go. You have an idea, you want to put it down somewhere. It's not really most people are not going to use it maybe on iPad more, but on iOS it's definitely more of a you add things, not you're planning your project or your next update or those kind of things. Looking forward to it. Do you have an app icon in mind?
Funnily, I like designing app icons ourselves. We wouldn't go with any like AI generated one, but we were trying. What were we using for this guy when it could not stop generating polar bears?
I tried just as a placeholder icon. I tried Gemini, like Google's generation. Let me see if I find the conversation. But the app was called Polaris. So it generated like 4 options. And a lot of them were polar bears. I was like, that's a cute idea, but not what we want to go with. So I said, hey, can you give me 4 new options, but without bears? And then it gave me four only with bears. I was like, I said no bears, please. And the answer was, sorry, Kai, I cannot generate app icons that do not contain bears.
I really want that to be like a hard-coded limit. No, you get bears.
That was such a funny thing. Sorry, I cannot generate app icons that does not contain a bear. So I gave up on that. And then I just drew a circle in Pixelmator, and now it's just a blue circle on a white background.
Good placeholder.
I really don't. When you build a new thing and it just has the Apple default placeholder, I feel like that feels. It's not a motivating app icon. I always want something there, even if it's not great.
It's like once you buy a domain, it feels real. Once you have a different app icon, it's like we're doing this.
Definitely.
So that's our rough September plans. But I really enjoy this. Calmer of a year when it's not hectically trying to get all the things and figuring out. There was one year where Apple released, I think it was widgets and quick notes. I think that might have been during the same time on macOS.
Yeah, I think that
we spend a lot of time getting quick notes work nicely. And I don't think anyone's ever used them.
No, they feel like they kind of disappear pretty quickly.
Yeah, but especially on macOS, they were conceptually pretty nice because you could attach notes to any item in your app, but they would live in the Notes app. So what we built for Orbit was you could essentially go to any part of the app, any client, any invoice, anything, and then write notes. So if you wanted like private notes that you didn't want to share for a client, I don't know, like just meeting notes or some kind of issues that you've had with their billing, department or whatever, but something you didn't want live on the client, but kind of have your private note. And then every time you would open that client in Orbit, it would kind of the note would peek out in the corner on your Mac, and you can click it. I thought it was kind of neat.
That's kind of cool. Yeah, it could have worked really well.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything about that feature. Like,
no,
Apple hasn't there hasn't been any sessions about it since then.
No.
Yeah, and also there was no like lists on the app stores, like apps that would support quick notes or something. It was just kind of
quiet.
And I used it for like notes for invoices. Like when we had an invoice and I want to put a note on that we agreed on this kind of payment thing, but it wasn't supposed to be on the invoice. It was just supposed to be an information about it. And then next time I went there to mark it off as paid, I could see, oh yeah, they decided to pay a little bit different because of international transaction fees or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought it was conceptually neat, but that was a weird year where we felt like we kind of scrambled to get all the features done, and then it was disappointing when no one used those.
Yeah. No, but I think this will be good. It's gonna be a nice year where we can just make things better.
Yeah. And then see when AI stuff starts rolling out, what actually becomes of them, how it works, and which parts are useful. And which...
I'm sure it's great for people that have photos and email apps.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we'll all be building now until September, right?
Yeah.
Those are the easiest apps to put together just quickly.
Yeah. I heard it's really nice and quick.
Yeah. What email app do you use?
I just use standard mail app.
Okay.
And
I think
work mail is Gmail, and I just use the web interface because we really freed ourselves from most work email.
Yeah.
Since we started using Slack.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go back to Apple's mail apps this year. I always conceptually, I like third-party mail apps, but then there's always something that doesn't do the right way or the way I want to. So I always feel like, maybe I should try just using plain mail again.
Yeah, I moved back to regular mail because since they added the auto completion, if you're getting a verification email for two-factor authentication.
Oh yes.
They can automatically pick up on that, which it's just really nice.
Yeah, that's a relief. Yeah, if my private email was on Gmail, I might have used MimeStream or something. It feels like there are a lot of interesting options to try if you do that. But
I like MimeStream, but I don't know. I want the same client on both my phone and my Mac, especially when you have features like send later, right? I don't want to be in a situation where I schedule something to be sent later, and then I can't undo that on my phone if I'm out. That just feels, I don't know. It has never happened.
It has happened to me.
Just the idea of that being a thing where I cannot.
With awkward feeling.
It's like, you're really you're committed to $1 million purchase, and you're like, oh no, I didn't want to do that.
No, I scheduled something, then someone else sends me, the person who I was scheduling it to sends me an email, and it's now the email I scheduled that gets automatically sent did not make sense anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that too.
And then you have to rush home to undo it. Yeah. So I don't know. I like to use the same application across all the platforms.
Yeah. So it's going to be a good summer.
Yeah, should be fun.
Nice and simple. Yeah, looking forward to seeing the new app when it's time to show it off.
Yes. I am very excited to dig into it more.
Yeah.
I mean, we can send you an earlier build.
Yeah.
Should. Screenshots. Yeah, it would be really fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to chat about?
I think we've covered the important parts at least. Can always do more episodes later. This is my ongoing trick to get you to podcast more.
You always leave out one topic that you're like,
oh yeah, you just dangle it in front of you. Come back, we could talk about this.
Are you in Amsterdam in August by any chance?
Not that I know.
You made it sound like that's a thing everyone should be. Are you not joining everyone else? Are you in Berlin? Berlin in August by any chance?
I don't have that much booked in. There's we're going to have our kitchen redone in the end of August. So it's going to be, that might be a good time to be away. Actually.
Yeah, good excuse to leave. Mon's giving a talk or a workshop at Swiftui Island in the Netherlands, on the island of Texel.
Nice.
So we'll be in Amsterdam for a few days before, and then in Berlin to see my family.
Of course.
And we thought this time we'll organize like a core coffee. see if
So which weeks are we talking about?
that would be the
third week, right?
yeah. So that would be August 20,
It's like
14th,
19th?
I think.
14th. Okay.
Yes.
That's when we
Oh.
land, and then something the week
We'll
after
be there.
in Berlin.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah,
cool.
we're not that organized. We don't have that. We have the flights booked, but everything that
Yeah.
happens in between, we're still having to figure
Yeah.
out.
Let's wait.
Yeah,
to
but the
keep it.
conference is happening during the last week, so 27th to the 29th.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's. I'm very excited for the conference. It's a very cool concept. It's all like it's workshop only. It's a workshop only conference, and then
Interesting.
they sort of divide it into like smaller groups, so you can take the same. I will give the same workshop 3 times, so people can sort of decide when they want to
okay.
do it. And therefore, it's like a smaller group of people, and it's a lot more collaborative, where I can actually chat with everyone and work together a bit more. I think it's gonna be
Yeah,
really
it's not a
fun.
lecture hall setup where you just
No.
have an instructor, and the idea is that you can actually interact with people and talk about it and help out if there's questions and those kind of things.
Mm.
Oh, sounds great.
Mm.
It's also always fun with like variations of conference concepts. They don't all have to be the same.
Yeah.
No, I really like that too.
And it's on an island. Like it's most people bike around like on bicycles. I think I think the conference ticket comes with bicycles, or
I believe so,
it's
too.
like an
Yeah.
add-on
Wow.
that most people buy. So you just have a bicycle and you're just cycling around, which is fun.
Mm.
Yeah, and then we thought when we're already in Europe anyways, might as well host some core coffee and see if people show up. Malin hosted one in Stockholm when she was there.
Oh yeah, I saw a picture
April?
or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. I think we had almost like, I think we were about 10 people.
It's perfect.
There's a lot of good coffee shops in Sweden now.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot more good ones have popped up. I was missing some last time I was there, but
Yeah. It's good that we're catching up.
yeah. Got my note from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, living in Australia. Australia is probably the snobbiest coffee country in the world. I don't think most people that are not into coffee know that.
No.
But Australians are extremely picky about their coffee. And it is pretty incredible. You could go to like a train station coffee shop. It's probably better coffee than most coffee you would find in other countries, like even the snobby one. It's super, super good. It's really hard to find your favorite coffee shop in Australia because it's so hard not to get good coffee.
I wonder what the story behind that is.
Yeah. I mean, in general, Australians really care about food and like
produce
food quality and those kind of things. Like produce quality is really high. People on average, I've heard a theory, the minimum income or minimum salary in Australia is really, really high. So you have a lot of people that work in trades that are traditionally in other countries not paid super well. And they make a lot of money. And they often then want to have breakfast before work somewhere and coffee. So people that have a lot of financial resources to pay for premium quality, then also, wanting to spend that money on good food for breakfast and good coffee.
That's true. There's also really good brunch places, like breakfast places where you actually get like just really tasty meals and like very creative things.
Brunch.
I'm getting hungry now. We haven't eaten.
Australia spoiled us. So then our coffee snobbery went from near zero to pretty much 100. in the 4 or 5 years that we spent in Australia. But it's also Malin worked as a barista for a year, I think, in Australia.
Yeah, almost a couple of years. Yeah,
wow.
And now when I go to coffee shops here, and I like sometimes it comes up, and I mention that I worked as a barista in Australia. People are like, "What? In Australia?" They're like very impressed. I'm like, "Oh, cool." I did not think much of it back then.
Yeah, Malin worked. It was not. Again, in most other countries, you wouldn't consider it a fancy coffee shop. It was like in a mall. But they took their coffee making so seriously. Malin was not allowed to serve customers for months, right?
Yeah. I was working like the evening shifts, which is when we didn't have as many people buying coffee, but I could use that to like basically just stand there for like 4 hours just practicing and learning.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
They still paid her, right? So they paid someone for months to not serve customers just to get good enough for them to then pass a threshold. And they would actually taste like have a like essentially like a sample evaluation for Malin after the time. It was like, all right, is it good enough now to serve to customers? And then
serious.
And then it was only like for iced coffees initially, because it's like, you know, the shots don't matter as much as for like a flat white or something.
It feels like Japan level of care for the craft.
It is. And it's also, you don't think of Australia as like, you know,
no,
as a country as like being very particular, but their coffee is their coffee and their avocado sandwiches.
That's definitely serious.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's time to wrap up.
Yeah.
Great as
Let's
always.
do it. Yeah. Thank you so much for having us on. This was super fun.
Tack för att just du lyssnar på Kodsnack. Om du vill stödja oss, varför inte tipsa en bekant om podden? Eller lämna en recension i till exempel iTunes eller något annat ställe där det går att sätta betyg på poddar. Du kan också stödja oss genom att köpa oss en kopp kaffe på Coffee. ko-fi.com/kodsnack. Alla pengar går direkt till att göra podden bättre och trevligare. Du kan också komma och hänga i vår Slack-kanal. Länk finns på kodsnack.se, precis som alla andra länkar och all annan info kopplat till varje avsnitt. Sist men inte minst finns det också en länk till vår Spreadshop-butik där du kan köpa tröjor och andra prylar med kodsnacktryck. Återigen, tusen tack för att du lyssnar. Vi hörs.
Let me put it this way, Mr. Raymer. The 9000 series is the most reliable computer ever made. No 9000 computer has ever made a mistake or distorted information. We are all, by any practical definition of the words, foolproof and incapable of error.